Good morning. Today we're going to paint a rocking chair on a porch. And I even wrote a poem today. Well, let me close my shirt a little bit. I even wrote a poem. It's called We Always Wanted a Porch. I couldn't find one that I liked, so I wrote one. So here's the painting, and I'll show you how I did that right now. Good morning. It is Monday, June 17th, 2024, and it's 7:15 in the morning. And I'm narrating this video after I recorded it, because I wasn't talking much and I wanted to be sure to talk. Plus, I have a poem that I wrote for today's picture. Yes, a poem that I wrote. I know. Be prepared for mediocrity. So what I wanted to do was, I think you know, because I showed you in the opening scene, I wanted to do a picture of a porch in the sunlight, probably at the end of the day. And so the first thing to do, of course, was to draw the porch. And the porch has, somewhat of a perspective look to it, because it's a structure. It's got straight lines, so having a straight edge was necessary. Not necessary, because I probably could have done okay freehand, but I wanted the ruler to help me out a little bit here. So I kind of was winging this. I did have a reference photo that cast some shadows onto a house, but it didn't really copy the picture that I was looking at, the reference photo. And I was thinking about the idea of a porch. We have a porch. We don't have a porch that looks like the one in this picture, but we have a porch, and I love our porch because there's plants. Robin has plants in the porch, all potted plants, and they make it feel like I'm sitting in a garden. And just outside, it's a screened-in porch, so just outside the screen, there's a bird bath. There are actually 2 bird baths. And I love watching the birds and the squirrels. And once in a while, a snake, believe it or not. Yes, it comes up. And I know you're not going to believe this, but the snake is cute. It is, really, it's cute. Watching it drink the water. Knowing that somehow I've contributed to its well-being and its life. And it's probably a harmless snake. That's what Robin tells me anyway. She knows more about snakes than me. But I wouldn't hurt it. Unless it was inside the house, then maybe I would think differently. But anyway, I watched the animals in the bird bath, and the birds, of course. I love watching the birds take a bath. They just get their feathers all wet. They just fluff themselves up. The bird bath water sits in the hot sun all afternoon, and sometimes I refresh it. Sometimes Robin refreshes it. We take the hose and empty it out and fill it up again and get it cool. But I think sometimes that the animals like the warm water. I'm not sure. And then there are the bees and the wasps. They come by. They literally will land on the edge of the bird bath. And they appear to be, I would swear that they are, drinking the water. And same thing. Even though a bee and a wasp can be frightful, can be scary, can hurt you, at that moment, they look cute. They are cute. And sometimes when I go out to refresh the water. The bees, they fly around like they don't want to be bothered. They'd rather be drinking that stale water. But they don't bite me. They don't even come, well, sometimes they come near me, but they don't really. I've never been hurt by one of them. I'm not hurting them. I'm not near their nest, that's for sure. I don't even know where their nest might be, or their hive. But when I fill it up again with fresh water, they all come back and they drink that water. But I do like spending time on the porch. We don't live that far from a road, and it's a relatively busy road. You probably hear it in the background sometimes on these videos here, even though I'm indoors when I record these most of the time. But we do live near a road, and that's kind of nice too. We have a neighbor who has grandchildren, and they have a trampoline in the backyard. And when the grandchildren come over, they play on that trampoline. They bounce, they laugh, and they throw footballs back and forth. Sometimes there's a big net around the trampoline, so they sometimes will throw it. There'll be one kid in the yard, another kid in the trampoline, and they'll be throwing it over the net, catching it and bouncing. It's just that I just love hearing the kids. Oh, you could probably hear a motorcycle right there. I'm not sure if you could hear it. So on the picture you're looking at, I'm just basically trying to sketch in what I think I want in this picture, in this composition. I wasn't really clear how I was going to do this. I just knew I wanted a porch with a rocking chair and some sunlight coming across the porch and casting a shadow on the house. So aside from that, I was really kind of at a loss. It's not the porch we have now. Maybe it's the porch that I had once in my life. Or maybe it's a porch that I visited once in my life. I think it looks more like a porch that I have been to, and not a porch on a house that I owned. When you go to Cracker Barrel, you know, the restaurant Cracker Barrel, I don't know if they still exist. But when you go there, they have all of these rocking chairs out front. People sit in those rocking chairs. And I'm pretty sure they sell those rocking chairs. I've never bought one. But I have a chair. Mine doesn't rock. Mine is one of those foldable chairs that you can carry with you to the beach. I love that chair. I have two of them. One of them has a shadow, what do you call it? A shade, a top, a canopy, that's the word. And I put it up when I go to the beach. We're going to the beach this next weekend. Next weekend we're going to go to New Smyrna Beach on the east coast of Florida. Looking forward to that. Anyway, so the painting is not started yet. So far it's just a pencil sketch. I don't always do pencil sketches. In fact, I often don't. In fact, I guess I would say I rarely do them. But I should do them more often, maybe. Maybe it's laziness that I don't sketch more. Maybe I want to take the easy way instead of challenging myself. I think this picture challenged me. I wasn't really sure how to do it. I didn't have it all laid out. I didn't have a recipe, a formula. I just kind of knew what I wanted and wasn't sure exactly how to pull it off. But I've done lots of paintings, and in the past what worked for me was shadows are blue or purple, or violet, I guess is a better word than purple, or something in between blue and purple. They're never brown. Shadows are never brown. It's not a good color for shadows. Although there's exceptions to everything. Maybe shadows sometimes are brown. Of course, in the dirt they would be brown, wouldn't they? So forget what I said. Just forget about it. How you doing anyway? I read the things that you guys write, and it's so nice. You write some really sweet things, and I know some of you are super talented. I wonder sometimes if you look at the work I do and think of me as an amateur. I am an amateur. I am not a professional. I paint these cards to give them away. I do have them for sale. I've mentioned this before, but that's, I guess it's mostly if somebody, maybe it's a way to validate something. Maybe I think if somebody buys one, I'll be validated. And I do. I sell them now and then, so it's not like I only give them away. But every card is painted with the intent to give it away. And then I list it for sale on Fine Art America. And then if I give it away, I take it off of I don't take it off of the page because I keep the prints available. But I just make the original no longer available. Yeah. So, and then I love seeing them in people's homes. I love seeing them. I think I told you this. I've seen a couple of them in RVs or motorhomes or trailers, or whatever you call them, small spaces. And I've never seen one in a cubicle, but I've heard from people writing letters. Oh, I got one of your cards and I have it up by my desk. I have it up in my cubicle. I'm trying to remember if I ever worked in a place where I was in a cubicle. Not really. I never really had an office. Well, yes, I did. At the radio station, I did. Oh my gosh. I don't think of it as, why I don't think of it as an office? Because I really didn't work there. I worked in the studio. But I did have an office, like, to keep my stuff. Yeah, we did. I had a computer on my desk. Oh my gosh, I'm just drawing a blank when I say I never worked in an office. But I actually didn't work in there. I worked in the studio, and I guess the office was just my place to go when I wasn't in the studio. I don't know. Isn't it funny how we have memories of our family and memories of our work and the people we worked with and the people we are related to? Most of the people that I have worked with, I don't keep up with anymore. I'm trying to think if I keep up with anybody. I think there's one or two people that I worked with. So to have those people, I guess that's a work family. Then you have your actual family. I keep up with them forever. I mean, they are attached to me like glue, and I'm attached to them like glue. So, yeah, there's those people. And then there's the people at other things. Maybe the club or organization you belong to. Maybe you're in one of those, I don't know what they call, like the Kiwanis Club. What is that called? Is that a fraternity or? But anyway, maybe you belong to one of those, or a church or a synagogue. And then there's those people, right? They're part of your life also, right? And by the way, if you happen to have a radio show or maybe even a YouTube channel, there's a whole other family. It's the family of people that tune you in, go to your videos. You guys are like a brand new family to me. I get to know some of you. I know some of you by name. I know some of your backstories. And I appreciate you sharing them. I think that's why the cards touch people so much, is because usually I will send a card to somebody that has a painting of something that I think might be a reminder of something in their story. You know, I don't really try to do portraits of dogs or portraits of people that have passed on. I have done that in the past, not on the cards, but at request of people. They will ask me if I'll do a portrait of, somebody who has died. And I've done that. I did some portraits of people who had not died, who later on died. And then the surviving spouse is so grateful when they see me. They will say, I just want to thank you so much, because when my husband died, all I had left was that portrait you painted. And I keep thinking, wow, really? I did a portrait of a conductor, a maestro. And he's still alive. He's a great guy. But he went to a funeral with a friend of his. And that friend is also a friend of mine. So later on, after that funeral, the mutual friend that we had came to me and he said, you know what he said to me? And I said, what? And of course. And he said, well, such and such was, being memorialized, and they had a picture of him at the front. And he said to me that when I die, I want that picture that Larry did of me up there. And I said, oh, wow. Oh, my gosh, of all the photos that are probably around, that's the one he wants. And in fact, I had a guy come up to me just kind of at random, and he told me about somebody who also used, this was a guy who actually had already died, not the one talking to me, you know what I mean. He was, the guy who was talking to me was telling me about this other guy. He said at his funeral he had the portrait I did of him. I think it was pastel. But I think we've touched people with our art. I know you have. And maybe that's why I like the cards. Maybe that's why I like giving them away. Maybe selling them doesn't give me that same connection as giving them away. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I give them away so there's a connection. So as you can see, the porch painting is coming together. I'm using the blue as the shadow. I'm keeping the white of the paper as the stark sunlight that's being shined upon the house, and the plants and the rocking chair. Hopefully I pull that off well. So anyway, I thought I'd read to you a poem, and today I wrote the poem. So a little background on me writing. I'm not new to writing. I've written all my life. I've always written songs, and of course songs are basically poems set to music. So I was always the guy with the guitar, strumming in my bedroom, writing little ditties, about life, about love, about things like that. I'm guessing you also write. Here's how come I say that. Because I think artists are, at their heart, they're creative people. They're just creative. You are creative. And if you are painting, then you're probably also writing. And maybe you're even sculpting. And maybe you're even creative in other ways. Maybe you have a garden. Robin is very creative, and that's her garden. That's her art. I know a couple from church, and their daughter and soon-to-be son-in-law went to Japan, and there was a 107-year-old lady. Now I'm saying Japan, but I could be wrong. It could have been the Philippines. But they went somewhere in Asia. And there was a 107-year-old lady, and she was a tattoo artist. And her tattoo art was very famous. It's very famous. And they showed me the tattoos that they each got because they're going to be married and they wanted to have something that they each had the same. And this 107-year-old lady did tattoo art using like a twig from a lemon tree with a large, painful-looking thorn. Yeah, they showed me video of the lady putting the tattoo on them. And to me, that's an art form. I mean, your canvas is somebody else's skin. It's crazy. But that's the way it is. There's so many people with tattoos nowadays. But anyway, my point is, I think we're all creative, first of all, just in different ways. I think a sports-minded person is probably creative in how they exercise or how they perform their sport, or the plays like in a football game. That's creative. That playbook you always hear about, right? But anyway, I think writing and art and sculpture and music and dance, I think they all kind of are part of the same group. And those people who participate in one probably dabble in the others. So, I mean, think about it. Tony Bennett, right? Singer, but he's also a great artist. I know he's passed. Paul McCartney, doesn't he do a lot of art? Bob Dylan, didn't he do a lot of art? Andy Warhol, didn't he write? He was not just an artist, but he also wrote. I think it's probably true for a lot of creatives. So it's probably true for you too. And it's been true for me. I've written a lot, and I have done a lot of art and a lot of music. And I think that's about it. I don't think I've done anything else. So let me read you the poem that I wrote. This is called We Always Wanted a Porch. We always wanted a porch, a place to reflect our vantage of the past. We always wanted memories. They were our fortune, our private magic stash, gently rocking, gently remembering, softly sipping at coffee or tea. With the sunset on your face and your soft eyes melting me. We'd have potted plants beside us. We'd have songs of birds in the trees. We would marvel at God's wonder. We would treasure you and me. Maybe in October we can take that train and see the autumn leaves. Maybe the kids will visit. We can take them on a picnic. We can drive them to the beach. We always wanted a porch, a place to dream. It's what we do. And the dreams are brightly colored, knowing they are shared with you. Then we pause, we smile, we sit silently as our words paint images delicately. As I slip into sleep, are you sleeping, you ask? I lie and tell you no, and I hear your knowing laugh. The sun is nearly set now. like a slowly dying torch. One last sip of my coffee. We always wanted a porch. Yeah, I wrote that this morning because I couldn't find a poem. I found poems about porches, but not one that I really, really liked. I'm sure there were plenty out there. But today I chose to write one. I hope it wasn't too amateur. As I read it, I thought to myself, it does sound kind of forced, I guess. But anyway, that's my poem. We always wanted a porch. I think that's what I'll call the painting. We always wanted a porch. I really think that being able to get older is one of the greatest blessings. I don't know that I like some of the things that come with it, but it's a great blessing. You have a different view of the world. Different things become important, but you don't forget what was important. At least I don't. By remembering what was important, I understand when a young person is excited about something that no longer is exciting to me. But I am excited when I hear them talk about it because I know it's something they want to do. One good example of that is a roller coaster at a theme park. Sometimes I hear the kids talking about going to Disney World or Universal Studios, and they're so excited to ride the Gothic Express or something. I just made that name up. I don't know if there's a roller coaster with that name. But they're so excited, and they know the names, and they've watched the video, and they can't wait to go on this ride. And sometimes they'll mention how long the line is to get to that roller coaster. It's an hour and a half. So I think to myself, when I was younger, I did the same thing. I would go to a theme park, and I would stand in a line for an hour and a half, just to ride something that lasts 5 minutes. So I don't want to be the old guy who says, why would you wait in line for an hour? Instead, I want to be the old guy who remembers when I was excited to stand in line for an hour. So that's kind of how I look at life. We watch the kids grow up so fast. Robin's grandson and my grandson are both 5 years old. Exactly 5. Exactly the same age. They were both born on the same date. Can you believe it? Yep. And it's amazing. Like now, yesterday we were someplace and I saw this little 1-year-old baby, one and a half. When they're still old, you're still young enough to use the half. 1 and a half. So it just seems like yesterday when my grandson was that young, when Robin's grandson was that young. It seems like yesterday when my son was that young. I don't think I remember when I was that young. One day, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but I found some old 8mm films from my grandfather, and I saved them in like the metal canister that they came in, and I saved them in the garage. That was a mistake, because what would have been hours of video turned out to be maybe a half hour. What I did was I took that film. I saw an ad from a guy who takes old movies and makes them digital so you can watch them on your computer. And he told me after he looked at the film that most of it was unusable. But I asked him, I said, just whatever you can get, it's going to be better than nothing. And so he did. And I paid him, of course. And when I look at that video now, it's like, wow, what a treasure to have. There's some footage on there. It's all quiet. It's all silent. There was no sound back in those days. And there's a video of my brother under the Christmas tree, looking at the gifts on Christmas morning. There's a video of my father riding a bicycle, which I don't ever remember him riding a bicycle. There's video of people just waving at the camera. There's video of my grandparents coming to Florida, seeing Florida for the first time. They were the first ones who ventured out of the Northeast, in my family anyway. Well, I take that back. I have an uncle who lives in South Carolina. And we did visit him. I do remember those days when I was very young. But my grandparents moved. They were immigrants. They came to the United States in my grandmother came in 1928. And my grandfather came a year earlier, 1927. And they lived in New York, in the Bronx. And then they moved to Connecticut. And then they moved to Florida in the 60s, the early 60s. And we would visit them. So that was the connection to Florida, and that's how I ended up here. Because my mom wanted to live closer to her parents. And my dad was ready to retire from the police. And we moved. In fact, speaking of retiring from the police, I found a hand-typed form from my father's request to retire. Some of it is faded. I'm holding it right now as I look at it. It's dated January 6, 1972. And on the heading of the paper, which is faded, it says Police Department, New York, New York, 10013. And it says from the commanding officer of the Communications Division. And it's going to the commanding officer of the Pension and Relief Unit. And the subject is in compliance, TOP 257, dated July 7th, 1971. Wow. Even though this form is filled out January 6, 1972. It says the following named member of this command is applying for service retirement. And it says rank, patrolman. So my father was considered a patrolman. Then it gives my dad's name and his shield number. And it says that he is in possession of the following items of the department property. And that includes the shield, his ID card, his R&P, which I don't know what that is, his legal guide, which I don't know what that is, and his .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver with a serial number attached. Isn't that incredible? And then it says there are no charges pending. I guess sometimes with police, right, you could have a charge pending against you. And it says next scheduled tour of duty, 0800 to 1600 hours on February 16th, 1972. So that's about when we moved, the 16th or the 17th. He took leave, so his actual retirement date, according to this, it says application for service retirement and above property except revolver received at the pension section at 0950 hours on January 7th, 1972. Terminal leave starts at 0001 hours, February 16th, 1972. Retirement effective 2400 hours on April 13th, 1972. And then it's signed by the patrolman who filled it out, I guess. So I found that, and I thought, oh my gosh, where has that been hiding all this time? And it's kind of cool because, in my memory, I couldn't really remember exactly what date all of that took place. I was only 17. I was kind of in my own little world anyway. Is that true for you too? Were you in your own world at 17? Gosh. So maybe one day I'll be on a porch somewhere and I'll be telling that story again. And I've probably told these stories so many times. Sometimes I tell Robin, I start to tell her a story, and I will say, I know I've told you this before, but I want to tell you again. Do you do that? I don't not know. I mean, I know that I've told the stories before. Very rarely do I have a story that she's not heard before. I'm sure that's true with you too, right? The people you're close to, they've probably heard all your stories. You probably have heard some of my stories more than once. I probably have repeated myself on this channel. It's okay. It's what friends do. Friends tell each other their stories. The past, the memories, and always look forward to something. Always look to the future for something. I probably should have put 2 rocking chairs in this painting. But I only put 1. 1 rocking chair. But it's empty. Maybe that says something too. The empty rocking chair. I wrote a song called Mr. Freeman's Roses. Oh gosh, I wrote that song a long time ago. And it's about this lady who moves to a retirement home. And the kids in the neighborhood are worried that she died. But she didn't die. She went to the retirement home. And they would go visit her. And they would tell her that they take care of Mr. Freeman's roses because her husband, who died before her, had planted roses in the yard, and she always took care of them. After he passed, she was the caregiver, the caretaker of Mr. Freeman's roses. Of course, she was Mrs. Freeman. And Robin and I used to play that song. And one time we played it at a relatively large theater. It was called the Orange Blossom Opry, not too far from here. And I used to love doing that because we never had any big time music success, but we did have our share of little things like that. But anyway, so we played Mr. Freeman's Roses, and afterwards somebody from the audience came up to us and said, "You're not going to believe this, but my name is Freeman, and my mother-in-law went to a nursing home after her husband died. And you're not going to believe this, but she had roses." And I was like, "You're right. I'm having a hard time believing it." But I was believing it. I believed it. But it was unbelievable. I said to Robin after we got back in the car, I said, Do you think she was making that up? Or is it possible we actually have a song that tells her story? I mean, even with the name being correct. So I don't know. Well, in the painting, let's talk about the painting a little bit. You can see it's starting to come together. But the shadow needs to be stark, more stark than it is. The shadows need to be a little bit more defined. The grass in front of the porch needs to be there. Yeah, and the windows right there that I'm working on right there. The windows need to be a little bit darker. That's one of the things that I like doing with watercolor is allowing the the light areas to be colored in first, so that in the beginning the light areas look dark, but ultimately they're going to be light because I'll put darker colors around them, like the leaves on the plant in the flower pot, and some of the things on the porch. So you'll see that I'll just dab it in. I'm a dabber. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I don't paint like in large strokes, not usually. I usually dab. Do a lot of dabbing. A lot of pointillism kind of approach. So it's now almost 8 o'clock here. I can hear Robin is awake out there. She's moving around doing things. I'm always the first to wake up. I'm an early riser. I've always been an early riser. You know, in the poem I read to you that I wrote, where I said, let me go back to it. I said, as I slip into sleep, are you sleeping, you ask? I lie and tell you no, and I hear your knowing laugh. Well, that's true. Rob and I watch a movie on Netflix, and I never get through the whole movie. I might see the beginning, and I might see the ending, but there's often a large piece of the middle that I miss because I fall asleep. She seems to be able to stay awake for a whole movie, but then I'll fall asleep, and I guess I'm snoring or breathing heavy or whatever I do when I sleep. And then I'll hear her say, are you sleeping? And of course I'll say no. Even though I was. I hope that's a forgivable lie. Oh my gosh, can you imagine if you go to heaven and God asks you, did you ever lie? And you say, yes, sir, I did tell some lies. And he says, well, I know. I have the list of all of your lies right here. And then you cringe. And you say, are you going to tell me all the times I lied? Can you imagine if God said, yes, you have to hear about them, because you have to know how they made people feel. So, okay, I'm ready for this. So, did you take the garbage out when your mother asked you to? You said yes, but you didn't. Oh no. And your mother knew you were lying. Oh, I always wondered about that. And you know how that made her feel? Yes, I can feel it inside of me now. I didn't feel it back then. Isn't that going to be, oh my gosh, that moment right there when you are ashamed, standing before God and you're ashamed. I'm not trying to be religious on you, but let's say God does this and he gets to the part about lying when you fall asleep. He'll say to me, when Robin asked you if you were sleeping during a movie, watching Netflix, did you lie and say no, you weren't sleeping? And I'll say, yes, sir. And he will say, do you know how that made her feel? And I'll say, no, but you're going to show me. And then he will show me, and I will see the biggest love, because Robin won't be mad at me that I lied. Robin will laugh, and she'll be sweet, and I will feel her love for me, and I will know that I was loved, and I will thank God. I will thank God for the wonderful times that I've had, and probably apologize for not doing more. Probably. Maybe I could do more. Maybe. I wonder who I could cheer up with this painting. It's probably the one thing I can do. to help people cheer up a little bit. Send them a card. Write something in it. Write something that's got some substance to it, something that they will say, oh my gosh, this person gets me. This person understands what I'm going through. Why did you send me a painting of a rocking chair? And maybe I could say, because I know how much you enjoy sitting out in the sun. I know how much you enjoy waiting for the kids to come. I know how much you enjoy being outside, watching the birds and the squirrels, watching the bees in the bird bath. I know how much you enjoy your lemonade. I should have put lemonade in this picture. I should have put a table in this picture. Yeah, I should have put a picture. I mean, a table. A picture. I did put a picture. But you do have to wonder, why is there a wreath? Is this a Christmas time? Doesn't look like Christmas time. What's behind those windows? Is that somebody's bedroom? Is that the kitchen? Is the person who sits in that rocking chair coming out anytime soon? Is the person who sits in that rocking chair inside right now, sitting in a different chair? I love when you think about what a picture could mean. Sometimes I think about illustrating a book and writing all the things that I did not think of when I was painting the picture. Just all the things that the picture itself stimulates for me to wonder about. There's so much to wonder about. There's so much. There are so many things in this world. So many things that are curious. I know that we humans like to pretend we have figured it all out. But we haven't. We're basically children. Basically children who don't realize we're children. That's what we are. We're gifted beyond belief. We're gifted. Every creature is gifted. Every creature. You are gifted. You are gifted. Not only that, but your gift is a gift. So the gift that you have is the gift that you give. How about that? Yeah. Find a way to take your gift and make it for somebody. You don't have to give it away for free. If you sell something to make a living for yourself and your family, the thing that you sold is still a gift. The gift doesn't necessarily mean for free. How many times have you given yourself a gift and you've worked for it? You know, you spent a whole year saving up money for a vacation and you gave yourself a gift. Well, nothing wrong with that. In fact, that sounds really good right now. Taking a vacation. In the poem, I also wrote this. I wrote, maybe in October, we can take that train and see the autumn leaves. That's really something I want to do. I want to take the Amtrak train from Penn Station in New York City. And I want to ride the train all the way up to Montreal, Quebec, in Canada. And I want to see the foliage. So I want to ride in that train in October or maybe September. I don't know when the foliage is. But I've looked at videos of that train ride, and it's it basically follows the Hudson River. And then once you get to Canada, I guess nowadays you need a passport, right? So I guess if I was to do that right, I'd have to be all prepared. I do have a passport. I've never used it, but maybe that would be the time I use it. I used to go to Canada when I was younger. Back then you didn't need a passport. Now you do, from what I hear. But to do the train would be so cool because it's not about the destination. It's about the trip. It's about riding the train, looking out the window, seeing the towns go by, looking at the Hudson River. Maybe there's a couple of bridges you go over on the train. Now there would be an opportunity to get a lot of reference photos. So make sure you bring your camera. I'm telling myself. Make sure you bring your camera. Of course I will. The camera's built into my phone. It's a different world. If you have your phone, you have your camera. If you have your phone, you have your video camera. If you have your phone, you have your calendar. If you have your phone, you have your notes. If you have your phone, you have every photo you've ever taken over the last 10 years. If you have your phone, you have the whole internet. If you have your phone, my gosh, we use our phones for everything. So, it's getting close to the end of this video. I want to thank you for watching, for listening. Hopefully the painting was enjoyable. The music I chose was enjoyable. I get the music from a company called Artlist.io. I always list it in the notes underneath the video. And if you want to be part of the community that is from this channel, go to facebook.com/groups/Poppa Paints. And there's a lot of artists in there who are so wonderful at their craft. The paintings are beautiful. And the conversation is just so nice. So if you want to be part of that, it's a really nice community. And Robin and I, the other day, we made a short video to encourage people to create an actual community, maybe a group at your church that gets together every week and paints, or maybe just a group in your neighborhood, or maybe just two of you that you get together every Tuesday, let's say. I don't know. When Robin and I do painting of the cards for the church, we always sit at the table and do them together. Maybe I'll do a video of that one day, of the two of us doing cards. And we always have the names of the people who will get them in advance. So I try to think of a subject that would be good for them. Something that might touch them. In my paintings, I don't usually do religious themes. But once in a while, I'll put a cross in there. Or maybe a sunrise that sort of represents a new beginning. Alright, looks like the card is painted. And my new cards will arrive today. That's not actually a card. Well, it is now. But that was actually, I cut it out of a large sheet of watercolor paper. And painted it. So there it is. There's the finished card. Alright guys, you take care of yourselves. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you're not subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe. And I think when you subscribe, then you get a message that says that there's a new video or something. Alright, see you later. Bye.